The phone buzzed against the granite countertop like an angry wasp. 3 in the morning, and my wife Sandra was asleep upstairs, probably dreaming about her next promotion or whatever corporate ladder-climbing bullshit kept her motivated these days. I padded downstairs in my boxers for a glass of water, and there it was. Her iPhone, face up, glowing with a text notification. Can't wait to taste you again tomorrow. Same hotel room. Mr. Black Tie. I stared at the screen until it went dark, my reflection staring back like some kind of ghost. 15 years of marriage, and this is how I find out my wife's been playing hide the salami with her boss. Not through lipstick on collars or mysterious receipts, through a horny text message at 3 in the goddamn morning. My name's Jake Morrison, and I fix industrial machinery for a living. Grease under my fingernails, honest work, decent pay. Nothing glamorous, but it keeps food on the table and pays the mortgage on our little suburban house in Millfield, Ohio. Sandra always made it clear she married beneath her station. Harvard MBA working in HR for some hotshot consulting firm downtown, while I went to community college and learned to fix things with my hands. Mr. Black Tie had to be Richard Blackstone, her CEO. I'd met the pompous asshole at company parties, watching him work the room in his $1,000 suits, talking about synergy and paradigm shifts while looking down his nose at anyone making less than 6 figures. The kind of guy who probably irons his underwear and uses words like utilize instead of use. I picked up Sandra's phone. No password. She trusted me that much at least. Or maybe she just never thought I was smart enough to figure anything out. The messages went back months. Explicit stuff that made my stomach turn. Hotel meetups every Tuesday and Thursday. Complaints about her clueless husband who was too stupid to notice anything. Well, surprise, sweetheart. This clueless husband just got an education. I scrolled through their conversation history, my anger building with every message. They weren't just screwing. They were planning a future together. Sandra was going to ask for a divorce after Richard's promotion went through next month. They'd already looked at condos downtown, somewhere more sophisticated than our suburban neighborhood. The worst part? She'd been complaining to her sister Emma about me for weeks, calling me burden and saying she deserved better than a grease monkey. Emma, of course, had been encouraging the whole thing, telling Sandra she was too good for someone like me and that she should follow her heart. Emma Caldwell, Sandra's younger sister, 28 years old, never worked a real job in her life, living off Daddy's trust fund while pretending to be an artist. She'd always hated me, made it clear I wasn't good enough for her precious sister. Now she was actively encouraging Sandra to blow up our marriage. I took screenshots of everything, then put the phone back exactly where I found it. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from pure rage. These people thought I was some kind of idiot, too dumb to see what was happening right under my nose. They had no idea what they'd just unleashed. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The next morning, Sandra bounced downstairs in her power suit, all smiles and fake affection. "Morning, honey. I've got that client dinner tonight, so I'll be home late again." Client dinner. Right. More like getting bent over a hotel room desk by her boss. "No problem," I said, not looking up from my coffee. "I'll probably hit the gym with Tommy anyway." Tommy Kowalski owned an auto shop on the east side and had been my best friend since high school. Former Golden Gloves boxer, built like a brick shithouse, and loyal as a German shepherd. If I was going to war, I'd need backup. Sandra kissed my cheek, the same lips that had been wrapped around Richard Blackstone's dick, and headed off to work. I called in sick and spent the day planning. First stop, Tommy's garage. I found him elbow deep in the engine of a Chevy Suburban, cursing in Polish at a stubborn bolt. "Jake, what brings you here on a Tuesday?" "Need a favor, Tommy, and probably some advice." I showed him the screenshots. Tommy's face went from confused to furious in about 3 seconds. That witch! And this Blackstone asshole, I've heard of him. Drives a silver Porsche, right? Parks it at that fancy gym downtown? That's him. So what's the plan? You want me to tune up his pretty face? Nothing violent. I've got something better in mind. I'd spent the morning researching Richard Blackstone online. Married to a gorgeous brunette named Sophie, some kind of Instagram influencer with 100,000 followers. Her posts were all designer clothes and expensive restaurants, but lately, there'd been sad quotes about loneliness and feeling unappreciated. Classic neglected wife syndrome. I'm going to destroy them both, I told Tommy, but I'm going to do it smart. That evening, while Sandra was getting railed at the Marriott downtown, I created a fake Instagram account. Professional-looking photos I pulled from a stock photo site, bio, that made me sound successful but approachable. I started following Sophie Blackstone. She followed me back within an hour. I liked a few of her posts, the sadder ones, and left sympathetic comments. Nothing creepy, just genuine-sounding support. Sorry you're going through a tough time. Hope things get better, she replied almost immediately. Thank you. It's nice to know someone cares. And just like that, the hook was set. Over the next 2 weeks, Sophie and I developed an online friendship. She was lonely, neglected by her workaholic husband, who barely acknowledged her existence unless he needed arm candy for some corporate event. Sound familiar? He comes home at midnight, if he comes home at all, she messaged me one evening. I feel like I'm married to a stranger. I know exactly how you feel, I replied. My wife's been distant lately too. It's like we're living parallel lives. The irony was delicious. Here I was, bonding with Richard Blackstone's wife over our mutual loneliness, while our spouses were sleeping with each other's brains out at the downtown Marriott. Sandra, meanwhile, was getting sloppy. New lingerie that never made an appearance in our bedroom. Expensive perfume she only wore on client dinner nights. She'd started going to the gym more often, working out with Emma, who was filling her head with more poison about deserving better than her blue-collar husband. Emma thinks you're holding me back, Sandra said one night, apropos of nothing. We were watching TV, or pretending to. She says I could do better. Emma's never worked a day in her life, I replied. What does she know about anything? She knows about relationships. She's dated successful men. You mean she slept with rich guys who dumped her when they got bored? Sandra's face went cold. Don't talk about my sister like that. Why not? It's true. She stormed upstairs, and I heard her on the phone with Emma 20 minutes later, complaining about my attitude. They were planning something. I could feel it. The divorce conversation was coming soon. But I was planning too. Sophie and I had moved from Instagram to texting, then to phone calls. She had a soft, musical voice and a laugh that actually made me smile, something I hadn't done genuinely in months. We talked about everything: books, movies, our disappointments, our dreams. I'd love to meet you sometime, she said during one of our late-night conversations. Just for coffee, as friends. I'd like that too. We arranged to meet at a trendy cafe downtown, the kind of place Sandra and her corporate friends like to frequent. Sophie was even more beautiful in person. Dark hair, green eyes, curves in all the right places. But it was her vulnerability that really got to me. She was starving for genuine human connection, same as I was. This is crazy, she said, stirring her latte nervously. I've never done anything like this before. Neither have I, but sometimes crazy is what we need. We talked for 3 hours. She told me about her photography hobby, her dreams of opening a gallery someday. I told her about my work, my love of fixing things, making them better than they were before. You're so different from what I expected, she said. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone more like... She trailed off. Like your husband? She nodded, looking embarrassed. Trust me, I said. I'm nothing like your husband. When we parted ways, she hugged me goodbye. It lasted a few seconds longer than friendly, and I could feel the electricity between us. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. I was actually falling for this woman, but revenge was still very much on the menu. Sophie and I started meeting regularly. Coffee dates became lunch dates, which became long walks through the park, which became stolen kisses in my car. She was everything Sandra wasn't. Warm, genuine, appreciative of simple things. "I feel alive again when I'm with you," she whispered one afternoon as we sat by the lake. I'd forgotten what that felt like. Me too. Our first time together was in a hotel room, not the Marriott where my wife was getting her back blown out twice a week, but a nice place across town. Sophie was nervous, almost shy, like she hadn't been touched with genuine affection in years. Afterward, as we lay tangled in the sheets, she traced patterns on my chest with her fingertip. "I know this is wrong," she said quietly. "Is it? Your husband doesn't appreciate you. My wife doesn't appreciate me. Why should we be miserable? What happens when this ends? Who says it has to end?" She looked up at me with those green eyes, hope and fear warring in her expression. Meanwhile, Sandra was getting bolder. She'd started staying out until 2 or 3 in the morning, claiming client emergencies and late meetings. Emma was encouraging her to be more assertive, to stop settling and take what she deserved. "Jake's a nice guy," I heard Emma say during one of their phone calls. "But nice doesn't pay for the lifestyle you want. You need someone with ambition. Someone like Richard Blackstone, presumably. A man with ambition and money, and a wife he was neglecting while he slept with my wife." Tommy had been doing some reconnaissance for me. Richard's Porsche had been spotted at the Marriott every Tuesday and Thursday, same as Sandra's schedule. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. "You want me to key his car?" Tommy offered. "Slash his tires?" "Not yet. I want to savor this." The company Christmas party was coming up in 2 weeks. Sandra had been shopping for a new dress, something to make an impression. She'd probably planned to go with Richard, make their relationship public, force my hand. But I had other plans. "Sophie," I said during one of our afternoon rendezvous, "how would you feel about going to a party with me?" "What kind of party?" "My wife's company Christmas party, black tie event, very fancy." Her eyes widened. "Jake, that's Richard's company. He'll be there." "I know." "You want to go public, with us?" "I want to stop hiding, don't you?" She was quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Yes, I'm tired of sneaking around, tired of being invisible." "Then let's make sure everyone sees us." The Meridian Hotel ballroom was packed with Millfield's corporate elite, men in expensive tuxedos, women in designer gowns, everyone trying to outclass each other with their jewelry and small talk. I felt like a wolf in sheep's clothing, wearing my one good suit and a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Sophie looked absolutely stunning, in a red dress that hugged her curves perfectly. Every head turned when we walked in together, and I could see the whispers starting immediately. Who was this woman? Who was the guy in the off-the-rack suit? Sandra spotted us first. She was across the room in a black cocktail dress, standing next to Richard Blackstone like she belonged there. Her face went white when she saw me, then red when she recognized Sophie. "Jake?" She appeared at my elbow within minutes, her voice tight with panic. "What are you doing here, and who is this?" "Sandra, I'd like you to meet Sophie. Sophie, this is my wife, Sandra." Sophie extended her hand with a smile that could cut glass. "It's so nice to finally meet you. Jake's told me so much about you." Sandra's handshake was limp, distracted. Her eyes kept darting around the room, looking for Richard, probably trying to figure out how to handle this situation. "I didn't know you were coming tonight," Sandra said to me. "You never asked. Besides, I thought it was time I met your co-workers, especially your boss." Right on cue, Richard Blackstone approached our little group. He was a tall man with silver hair and the kind of confident bearing that came from never being told No. His eyes locked on Sophie immediately. Sophie? What are you doing here? Hello, Richard. I'm here with Jake. She moved closer to me, and I put my arm around her waist possessively. The look on Richard's face was priceless. Confusion, then recognition, then pure fury as he put the pieces together. You're Sandra's husband, he said to me. That's right, and you're Sophie's husband. Funny how things work out. Sandra looked like she was about to faint. Richard's jaw was clenched so tight I thought he might crack a tooth. Sophie, we need to talk. Now. No, we don't. Sophie's voice was calm but firm. We haven't needed to talk for months. Why start now? Because you're making a scene. Am I? I'm just enjoying the party with my date. The word date hit both Sandra and Richard like a physical blow. People around us were starting to stare, sensing drama in the air. Jake, Sandra hissed, grabbing my arm. Can I speak with you privately? Actually, I was just about to ask Sophie to dance. Richard, you don't mind, do you? I led Sophie to the dance floor before he could answer. As we swayed to the music, I could see both Sandra and Richard watching us from across the room, their faces twisted with rage and confusion. You're enjoying this? Sophie murmured against my ear. Aren't you? She pulled back to look at me, and I saw something fierce and satisfied in her green eyes. More than I should. Then let's really give them something to talk about. I dipped her low, then pulled her back up and kissed her deeply, right there in front of everyone. The whispers around us turned into open staring, and I could see phones coming out to record the moment. When we broke apart, Sophie was breathing hard. Jake, I love you, I said, loud enough for the couples dancing nearby to hear. I love you too. And I realized, with a shock, that I meant it. This had started as revenge, but somewhere along the way, it had become real. The party exploded after that. Sandra stormed off to the bathroom, probably to have a panic attack. Richard tried to follow Sophie and me, but Tommy intercepted him. I'd invited Tommy as my guest, and he looked magnificent in his rented tux, like a bouncer at an exclusive club. Problem here? Tommy asked Richard, stepping into his path. That's my wife, Richard snarled. Funny she doesn't seem to think so. Emma appeared out of nowhere, her face flushed with champagne and righteous indignation. She was Sandra's +1 for the evening, and she'd clearly been watching the drama unfold with growing horror. Jake, what the hell do you think you're doing? She demanded. Dancing with my date. Is there a problem? Your date? You're married to my sister. Your sister who's been sleeping with her boss for the past 4 months? That sister? Emma's mouth fell open. Around us, the conversation stopped as people leaned in to hear better. You don't know what you're talking about, Emma said, but her voice lacked conviction. I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the screenshots I'd taken, Sandra's explicit text to Richard, complete with timestamp and hotel details. Tuesday and Thursday nights at the Marriott downtown, room 412. Same room every time. They must have a standing reservation. Emma stared at the phone, her face going pale. You've known? For weeks. The question is, did you know? Emma's silence was answer enough. She'd known about the affair and encouraged it, probably thinking she was helping her sister trade up to a richer man. You encouraged this, I continued, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet ballroom. You told Sandra she deserved better than her blue-collar husband. You helped her justify cheating on a man who loved her. Jake, please, Emma whispered. People are staring. Good, let them stare. Let them see what kind of family you really are. Sandra emerged from the bathroom, her makeup repaired but her eyes red-rimmed. She took one look at the crowd gathered around us and knew her secret was out. Jake, we need to leave. Now. Why? The party's just getting started. Richard pushed past Tommy and grabbed Sophie's arm. We're going home. Sophie jerked away from him. Don't touch me. You're my wife. In name only. When's the last time you touched me? Really touched me. Not just rolled over in bed when you were done using me as a prop at these events? The crowd was eating this up. Phones were definitely recording now, and I could already imagine the social media posts that would be flooding the internet before we even left the hotel. You want to know why I'm here with Jake? Sophie continued, her voice growing stronger. Because he sees me, he talks to me, he makes me feel like I matter. He's using you to get back at me, Richard snapped. Maybe, but at least he's honest about it, unlike you and your little HR girlfriend. That got a gasp from the crowd. Sandra's face went crimson as everyone turned to look at her. That's enough, Sandra said, grabbing my arm again. We're leaving. I shook her off. I'm not going anywhere. I'm having fun. Jake, please, think about what you're doing. I am thinking. I'm thinking about how you've been lying to me for months. I'm thinking about how you and your sister have been planning to dump me as soon as your boyfriend gets his promotion. I'm thinking about how you called me dead weight and a grease monkey to your friends. Sandra's face crumpled. You weren't supposed to find out like this. How was I supposed to find out? Were you actually going to tell me? Or were you just going to serve me with divorce papers and move in with Dick here? Don't call him that. Why not? It's accurate, isn't it? Richard stepped forward, his face red with anger. You want to settle this like men? I laughed. What? You want to fight me? Here? In front of all your corporate buddies? If that's what it takes. Tommy moved closer, cracking his knuckles. I got $20 on Jake. 50 on the grease monkey, someone called from the crowd. Security appeared before things could escalate further, but the damage was done. The story would be all over social media within hours. CEO caught cheating with employee's wife. Employee shows up with CEO's wife. Public confrontation at company Christmas party. Richard Blackstone's reputation was about to become very, very complicated. The next morning, I woke up in Sophie's bed. She lived in a penthouse downtown, all glass and chrome and expensive furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Nothing like the comfortable, lived-in house I shared with Sandra. Good morning, Sophie murmured, curling up against my chest. Any regrets? About last night? Hell no. About us? I kissed the top of her head. Never. My phone had been buzzing all morning with texts and calls. Sandra had sent about 50 messages, ranging from angry to pleading to threatening. Emma had called twice, probably trying to do damage control. Even my mother had texted, asking if the rumors she'd heard from her neighbor were true. But the most interesting message was from Tommy. Turn on Channel 7 News. Sophie and I watched from her bed as the local morning show covered the drama at the Meridian Hotel that had rocked Millfield's business community. They didn't name names, but they didn't have to. The footage from people's phones was pretty clear. Richard's going to lose his mind, Sophie said, but she didn't sound upset about it. Good. Let him. My phone rang. Sandra's ringtone. You should probably answer that, Sophie said. Why? Because this isn't over yet. She was right. I answered the call. Jake, thank God, we need to talk. Do we? Please, come home. Let's work this out. Work what out? Your affair? Your plans to divorce me? Your sister's campaign to convince you that you're too good for me? I know you're angry. Angry doesn't begin to cover it. Just come home, please. I looked at Sophie, who was watching me with those green eyes. She nodded slightly. Fine. But I'm bringing Sophie. What? No, Jake, this should be between us. Nothing's just between us anymore, Sandra. You made sure of that when you started sleeping with your boss. I hung up and turned to Sophie. Feel like meeting my wife officially? This should be interesting. Sandra and Emma were waiting in my living room when Sophie and I arrived. They'd obviously been strategizing, probably trying to figure out how to spin this situation to their advantage. Emma looked like she'd been crying. Sandra looked like she wanted to commit murder. "You brought her here?" Sandra said, staring at Sophie. "To our house?" "It's my house, too. And Sophie is my girlfriend now. Deal with it." "Your girlfriend? Jake, you're being ridiculous. This is just some midlife crisis thing. You're upset about the affair, I get it, but this isn't the answer." Sophie settled onto the couch like she owned the place. "Actually, I think it's a perfect answer." "Nobody asked you," Emma snapped. "Emma," I said, my voice cold, "you need to shut your mouth before I say something that really hurts your feelings." "You can't talk to me like that." "I can talk to you however I want. You helped destroy my marriage. You encouraged my wife to cheat. You called me names behind my back and made her feel like she was settling by staying with me." Emma's face went red. "Sandra deserves better than this. She's educated, successful, sophisticated. You're just a what? A blue-collar worker? A guy who fixes things with his hands instead of pushing paper around an office?" "Yes." The word hung in the air like a slap. Sandra looked mortified. "Emma, stop," Sandra said quietly. "No, someone has to say it. Jake, you're a nice guy, but you're not in Sandra's league. You never were. She needs someone who can match her intellectually, financially, socially." "Someone like Richard Blackstone?" "Yes, exactly like Richard." Sophie laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Richard Blackstone is a cheating narcissist who hasn't touched his wife in 6 months. Is that really what you think Sandra deserves? At least he's successful." "He's about to be unemployed," I said quietly. Everyone turned to stare at me. "What do you mean?" Sandra asked. I pulled out my phone and showed them the email I'd received an hour ago. It was from the head of HR at Richard's company, a woman who'd apparently been looking for an excuse to get rid of him for months. Anonymous tip about an executive having an inappropriate relationship with a subordinate. They're launching an investigation. Richard's been suspended pending the outcome. Sandra's face went white. "You reported us?" "I didn't have to. Turns out, half the office already knew. They were just waiting for someone to make it official." "This is insane," Emma said. "You're destroying people's lives." "I'm not destroying anything. I'm just letting the truth come out." Sophie stood up and walked over to Sandra. "You know what the funny thing is? I actually feel sorry for you." "Excuse me?" "You had a good man who loved you, and you threw it away for what? A promotion, money, status." "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. I married for money too. Richard was successful, handsome, seemed like a good catch. But money doesn't keep you warm at night. It doesn't make you laugh or hold you when you cry or make you feel like you're the most important person in the world." Sophie looked back at me. "Jake does all of those things, and you gave him up for a man who was using you the same way he used me." "Richard loves me," Sandra said, but her voice was weak. "Richard loves Richard. You were just convenient." Emma stood up abruptly. "This is bullshit. Sandra, we're leaving. You don't have to listen to this." "Actually, she does," I said, "because I'm not done yet." I walked over to the mantelpiece and picked up a manila envelope I'd placed there earlier. "Divorce papers," I said, holding them up. "Already filled out. I'm keeping the house, since I'm the one who's been paying the mortgage. You can have your car and your clothes and whatever money you've got in your personal accounts." Sandra stared at the papers like they were a poisonous snake. "Jake, please, don't do this. We can work through this." "No, we can't. You made your choice when you started sleeping with your boss. You made it again when you let your sister convince you I wasn't good enough for you. And you made it a third time when you planned to leave me for a man who's about to lose everything. I never meant for it to happen this way. But it did happen. And now you get to live with the consequences." I handed her the papers. "You've got 30 days to find somewhere else to live." Emma grabbed the papers and threw them on the floor. "You can't do this. Sandra has rights." "Sandra has the right to find herself a good lawyer. She's going to need one." Sophie moved to stand beside me, taking my hand. We should go. I think you've said everything that needs saying. As we headed for the door, Sandra called out, Jake, wait, please. I love you. I stopped and turned back to her. No, you don't. You love the idea of me as a backup plan. You love having someone safe to fall back on when your real life doesn't work out. But you don't love me. That's not true. If you love me, you wouldn't have cheated. If you love me, you wouldn't have let your sister poison you against me. If you love me, you would have talked to me about whatever problems we were having instead of running to another man. Sandra was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you are. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry your plan fell apart. You're sorry Richard turned out to be a dead end, but you're not sorry for what you did to me. I am. I swear I am. Prove it. Tell Emma she was wrong about me. Tell her I was good enough for you, and you were just too stupid to see it. Sandra looked at her sister, then back at me. The silence stretched on. I thought so, I said finally. Goodbye, Sandra. 6 months later, I was living in Sophie's penthouse and loving every minute of it. She'd filed for divorce from Richard the week after the Christmas party, and it had been finalized just last month. My divorce from Sandra had been messier. She'd tried to fight for half the house, claiming she'd contributed to the mortgage payments, but her affair had killed any sympathy the judge might have had. Richard Blackstone had been fired, of course. The investigation had turned up not just his affair with Sandra, but a pattern of inappropriate behavior with female employees going back years. He'd lost his job, his reputation, and his wife all in one spectacular implosion. Sandra had moved in with Emma temporarily, but that arrangement had lasted exactly 3 weeks before they'd had a massive fight, and Sandra had found herself a studio apartment on the bad side of town. She'd been blacklisted from most of the good companies in the area. Word travels fast in corporate circles, especially when it involves sleeping with the boss. Emma had tried to blame me for everything, of course. She'd actually shown up at my work one day, screaming about how I'd ruined her sister's life and demanding that I fix it. Tommy had escorted her off the property, and she hadn't been back since. Any regrets? Sophie asked me one evening as we sat on her balcony, watching the sunset over the city. About what? About how it all went down. It was pretty brutal. I thought about it for a moment. They made their choices. I just made sure they lived with the consequences. That's very philosophical of you. I'm a philosophical guy. She laughed and curled up against me. I love you, Jake Morrison. I love you too, Sophie Morrison. We'd gotten married the month before, a small ceremony with just Tommy and a few of Sophie's friends. Nothing fancy, nothing dramatic, just two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of their old lives. My phone buzzed with a text message. Sandra, as usual. She'd been texting me regularly for months, sometimes apologizing, sometimes begging me to take her back, sometimes just asking how I was doing. Sandra again? Sophie asked. Yep. What does she want this time? I read the message. She says she's learned from her mistakes and she wants to try again. Says she realizes now that I was the best thing in her life. And? I deleted the message without responding, same as I'd done with all the others. Nothing to say to that. You're not even tempted. She was your wife for 15 years. She was my wife. Past tense. You're my wife now. Sophie smiled and kissed my cheek. Good answer. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the lights come on in the city below. I thought about Sandra and Emma and Richard, probably sitting in their respective apartments, wondering how everything had gone so wrong so fast. The truth was, I didn't feel bad for them. Not anymore. They'd made their beds, and now they were lying in them. Sandra had chosen status over love, Emma had chosen snobbery over family loyalty, and Richard had chosen power over decency. I'd chosen revenge, and it had led me to the love of my life. Jake, Sophie said softly. Thank you. For what? For fighting for me. For showing me what I was worth. You showed me the same thing. She was quiet for a moment, then said, Do you think they'll ever figure it out? Figure what out? That we were planning this together from the beginning. I smiled and pulled her closer. That was the one secret we'd never told anyone, not even Tommy. Sophie hadn't been an innocent victim in her marriage to Richard. She'd been gathering evidence of his affairs for months, waiting for the right moment to destroy him. When I'd contacted her on Instagram, she'd recognized my name immediately from Sandra's social media posts and realized I was the perfect weapon. We'd been co-conspirators from the very first message, two wounded spouses planning the downfall of our cheating partners. The attraction between us had been real, but the revenge had been calculated from day one. Probably not, I said. They're too busy feeling sorry for themselves to see the bigger picture. Good. I like having secrets with you. Even if those secrets destroyed 4 lives? They destroyed their own lives. We just helped them along. I laughed and kissed the top of her head. You're ruthless, Mrs. Morrison. I learned from the best, Mr. Morrison. We went inside as the sun disappeared behind the buildings, leaving the city in darkness. Somewhere out there, Sandra was probably crying into a glass of wine. Emma was probably plotting some new scheme to get back at me, and Richard was probably updating his resume for the 100th time. But I didn't care about any of that anymore. I had everything I wanted right here in my arms. 1 year after the Christmas party that had changed everything, Sophie and I were hosting our own party. Nothing as fancy as the Meridian Hotel ballroom, just a housewarming party for the new house we'd bought together in the suburbs. A nice place with a big backyard, perfect for the family we were planning to start. Tommy was there, of course, along with Sophie's photographer friends and some of my co-workers. It was a good crowd, people who actually liked each other, instead of corporate climbers trying to network their way to the top. Jake! Tommy called from across the yard. You've got visitors. I looked up from the grill to see Sandra and Emma standing at my gate, looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Sandra had lost weight, and not in a good way. She looked tired, older, worn down by a year of struggling to rebuild her life. Emma looked bitter, which wasn't much of a change. What do you want? I asked, not moving from my position at the grill. We need to talk, Sandra said. No, we don't. Please, Jake, just 5 minutes. Sophie appeared at my side, looking radiant in a sundress that showed off her growing baby bump. We'd announced the pregnancy just last week, and I was still walking on air about it. Is there a problem? Sophie asked sweetly. Sandra's eyes fixed on the bump, and her face crumpled. You're pregnant. 4 months, Sophie said, putting her hand on her belly protectively. Congratulations, Emma said, but the word came out like she was choking on glass. Thank you, I said. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have guests to attend to. Jake, wait, Sandra said desperately. I need you to know something. I don't need to know anything from you. Richard left town. He moved to Phoenix, got a job at some small consulting firm. He dumped me 3 months ago, said I was damaged goods because of the scandal. I felt Sophie's hand squeeze my arm, but I kept my expression neutral. I'm sorry to hear that. No, you're not. You're right, I'm not. Sandra's face twisted with pain and anger. How can you be so cold? We were married for 15 years. And you threw it all away for a man who dumped you the minute things got difficult. What did you expect? I expected some compassion, some understanding. From the man you cheated on? The man you called dead weight to your friends? The man your sister said wasn't good enough for you? Emma stepped forward. Jake, I was wrong about that. I admit it. You're a good man, and Sandra made a mistake. Save it, I cut her off. Your opinion stopped mattering to me the day you encouraged my wife to cheat. I never told her to cheat. You told her she deserved better. You told her she was settling. You poisoned her mind against me every chance you got. The affair was just the logical conclusion of your campaign. Emma's face went red. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when Sandra was sleeping with her boss in hotel rooms while I was home thinking we were working through a rough patch? Was it fair when you two were planning my life without bothering to include me in the conversation? You never meant to get caught. There's a difference. Sandra was crying now, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. I lost everything, Jake. My job, my husband, my home, my future. Everything. You lost everything because you chose to lose it. Nobody forced you to have an affair. Nobody forced you to listen to your sister's poison. Nobody forced you to treat me like I was beneath you. I know I screwed up. But can't you forgive me? Can't we try again? I looked at this woman who had been my wife for 15 years, the woman I'd loved and trusted and built a life with, the woman who'd thrown it all away for a chance at something better. No, I said simply. Why not? Because I don't love you anymore, because I'm happy now, happier than I ever was with you, because I'm married to a woman who actually appreciates what I have to offer instead of seeing me as a stepping stone to something else. Sophie's hand found mine, her fingers intertwining with mine. And because, I continued, you still don't get it. Even now, even after losing everything, you think this is about forgiveness. You think if you apologize enough, if you grovel enough, I'll take you back and everything will go back to the way it was. Isn't it? No, it's about consequences. It's about living with the choices you make. You chose Richard over me. You chose status over love. You chose to believe your sister when she said I wasn't good enough for you. Those choices have consequences, and this is what they look like. Sandra's sobs got louder. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I believe you. But sorry doesn't change anything. Sorry doesn't give me back the year I wasted trying to figure out why my wife was pulling away from me. Sorry doesn't erase the humiliation of finding out about your affair through a text message. Sorry doesn't undo the damage you and your sister did to my self-worth. Then what do you want from me? Nothing. I want nothing from you. I want you to leave me alone, stop texting me, stop showing up at my house, and stop trying to insert yourself back into my life. Jake, I want you to accept that we're done. Forever. I'm married to Sophie now, we're having a baby, and we're building a life together. You're not part of that life, and you never will be again. Emma grabbed Sandra's arm. Come on, let's go. He's not worth it. I laughed. That's perfect, Emma. Even now, even after everything that's happened, you still think I'm the problem. You still think Sandra deserves better than me. She does! Then help her find it. But find it somewhere else with someone else because it's not going to be with me. Tommy had moved closer during the conversation, along with several of my other guests. They formed a protective circle around Sophie and me, making it clear that Sandra and Emma weren't welcome. You should go, Tommy said quietly, before this gets ugly. Sandra looked around at the faces surrounding her, people who'd chosen my side, people who saw her as the villain in this story. Her shoulders sagged in defeat. I loved you, she whispered. No, I said. You loved the idea of me as a safety net. You loved having someone to fall back on when your real plans didn't work out. But you never loved me enough to stay faithful. You never loved me enough to defend me to your sister. You never loved me enough to be honest with me about what you wanted. That's not true. Prove it. Tell me one time, just one, when you chose me over something else you wanted. Tell me one time when you put our marriage ahead of your career, your sister's opinion, or your own ambitions. Sandra opened her mouth, then closed it again. The silence stretched on. I thought so, I said finally. Emma tugged on Sandra's arm again. Sandra, come on. Let's get out of here. This time, Sandra let herself be led away. I watched them walk back to Emma's car, two bitter women who'd gotten exactly what they deserved. You okay? Sophie asked softly. Perfect, I said, and meant it. We went back to our party, back to our friends, back to our life. An hour later, I'd almost forgotten Sandra and Emma had been there at all. That night, as Sophie and I lay in bed, she traced patterns on my chest with her fingertip. "Do you think she'll keep trying?" she asked. "Probably, for a while." "And Emma?" "Emma will never forgive me for proving her wrong about who deserves what." "Are you okay with that?" I thought about it for a moment. "Yeah, I am. They made their choices and now they get to live with them, just like we get to live with ours." Sophie smiled and kissed my chest. "I love our choices." "Me too." 6 months later, our daughter was born. We named her Hope, because that's what she represented. A fresh start, a new beginning, a future built on love instead of lies. Sandra sent a card to the hospital, congratulating us on the birth. I threw it away without reading it. Emma sent nothing, which was exactly what I'd expected. Richard Blackstone was a distant memory, a cautionary tale we sometimes told friends about the dangers of thinking you're better than you are. And me? I was exactly where I belonged, with a woman who loved me for who I was, not who she thought I should be. With a daughter who would grow up knowing her father was a man of integrity, with a life built on truth instead of deception. I'd gotten my revenge, but more than that, I'd gotten my life back. And that was worth everything.